Recess is over as Congress gets ready for a big budget fight. Illinois officials rally against the Trump administration's crime crackdown, and the U.S. Navy sinks a Venezuelan narco-terrorist boat. I'm Tony Kinnett, host of the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. Recess is over. Congress is back from its August break, getting ready for a large budget fight. We got a chance to sit down with our Daily Signal president, Rob Bluey, to talk a little bit about this yesterday. Congress is back in session. Recess is over. Everyone's been on their beaches all over, taking their little vacations. Look, some of us, we actually work regardless whether or not Congress is in vacation or recess. So what are you expecting now here? I know you came back from NatCon right next to the Hill. What's going on?
Yeah, it's a different vibe. It's September. You see people who were coming in dressed in T-shirts and jeans, all of a sudden, sporting a three-piece suit as they walk into the Senate and House office buildings today. And there's a lot of work to be done, quite frankly. The federal government runs on a fiscal year that ends September 30th. And so that means on October 1st, they need to have the spending plan in place. And right now, Congress has been working toward passing appropriations bills, but they're not really in a position where they can have the confidence that they're going to get all 12 appropriations bills done. And if they don't, Tony, you know this as well as anybody, they're going to have to resort to that age-old thing called the CR, the continuing resolution. And I'm going to have to
stay up until 2 a.m, not getting the top news in 10 done, waiting for them to cast their final votes, pestering all of these offices. Can you give me the scoop? Can you give me the scoop? Can you give me the scoop? I will ask this, though, because you deal with a different kind of question all the time. You go on to panels on networks that I'm surprised might have you on, and you're asked the same question. Rob, do you really think Mike Johnson's going to be able to hold it together this time? You've been asked this 26 times. So I will ask you for the 27th time, do you think Speaker of the House, Representative Mike Johnson, is going to be able to pull things through this time?
Yeah, I think that he probably will. I'm not sure what form he's going to. Tony, well, he's just had a track record of success. I'm not sure what form it's going to take, though, honestly, because even if the House gets the appropriations bills done, there's no assurance that the Senate will be able to do the same. And obviously, you need both. You need both chambers to get it done, right? Exactly.
Of course not. We're not sure all of the details, but I am getting a little bit weary's not the way. I'd say exasperated. Like my daughters come up and ask me for a cookie for the 18th time, and it's like I've already given you the answer. The man works in small majorities. Let's get into the nitty and the gritty of what the Senate will, bring to bear. And for that, we'll have to bring you back next week because I want to pick your brain about all of these retiring. You've got Nadler, you've got Ernst from Iowa. You've got like some stuff in the next campaign to get to, but we'll catch you for that later. Rob Bluey, Daily Signal. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.
Democrat leaders in the Senate and the House are calling for bipartisanship to avoid the government shutdown. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York wrote in a September 2nd letter to his colleagues, quote, "The only way to avoid a shutdown is to work in a bipartisan way with a bill that can get both Republican and Democratic votes in the Senate." Hakeem Jeffries took a slightly more confrontational tone in his comments, quote, "House Democrats are very clear. We're not down with that. And so if what we see next month is simply a continuation of that reckless right-wing Republican approach, we won't be down with it next month either," end quote. Republicans have been quick to lay this at the feet of Democrats as a possible government shutdown in the near future. Most likely, we're going to see some kind of continuing resolution in place, of course, as Rob Bluey made quite clear. This hasn't stopped some Democrats, like Representative Tim McBride, who goes by Sarah from Delaware, from complaining that the current series of votes in the House is actually anti-child and anti-family from the Republican Party.
Over the last several months, there has been a bipartisan effort to allow new parents in Congress to spend time with their new babies and to vote by proxy. House Republican leadership has tried to stop this effort every step of the way. Today, they actually just lost a vote trying to prevent proxy voting from coming to the floor. And because they lost that vote, they're taking their ball and going home. They're canceling all of the votes moving forward this week. Now, granted, what they were putting on the floor for the rest of the week is not good stuff. So we should be grateful that the harm is reduced. But it's amazing that the Republican Party, which used to pride itself on being pro-family, is so anti-baby, so anti-family, so pro-forced birth, but not pro-supporting parents, that they would shut down the House of Representatives just to keep new parents, new moms, new dads from being able to spend time with their babies.
Of course, the abortion platform, the transgender care for minors platform, that being the gender medication, hormonal therapies, and surgeries for minors platform, as well as a number of other highly progressive platforms that Tim McBride supports, are not exactly pro-family or pro-child, but political theater waits for no man, no matter what skirt he's in. Speaking of not waiting around, the Illinois officials aren't waiting for President Trump to deploy National Guard troops to Chicago without getting out in front of the people and making sure everyone knows they are against it. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order banning anyone at all in law enforcement in Chicago with working whatsoever with federal authorities, suggesting that the citizens of Chicago needed to rise up in quite an energetic performance. Check it out.
Are you prepared to defend this land that was built by slaves, a land that was built by indigenous people, a land that is built by workers? Are you prepared to defend this land? The people united will always prevail. I need you all to stand firm, to stand strong.
He also suggested that the shootings would continue as long as red states nearby had their gun problem.
Gun that the Chicago Police Department fights to get off the streets, 2 or 3 more new guns come into our city. Chicago will continue to have a violence problem as long as red states continue to have a gun problem. Shootings will continue as long as this presidential administration continues to put politics over people.
Now, blaming Chicago's gun problems on Indiana is a little bit far-fetched. According to data from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, about 1/5 of all guns seized in Chicago come from the state of Indiana next door, and of those, the vast majority were illegally obtained anyway, meaning they don't follow the gun laws in Illinois, Indiana, or in much tougher on guns Chicago. CNN's Brianna Kalar noted earlier yesterday that the violence in Chicago was mounting to a significant number over the Labor Day weekend.
Chicago did experience a particularly brutal Labor Day weekend. Police say 56 people were shot, 7 were killed. But across the board, crime is still down compared to last year.
When these numbers are presented to Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, his response isn't particularly reassuring.
You're going to hear people, especially this past weekend, 54 shot, 7 dead.
Yeah.
They're going to say, the city's not safe. Would you ask your friends to ride the L after midnight or after, 9 o'clock at night even to come down to the city from O'Hare?
Look, big cities have crime. There's no doubt about it. But let's just pay attention to what President Trump is doing targeting Chicago. He's overlooking red states that have much higher crime rates.
And lastly, yesterday morning, the United States Navy struck a Venezuelan cartel drug boat in the southern Caribbean, according to a post and then later videos shared by the Department of Defense. President Trump wrote, "Earlier this morning, on my orders, U.S. military forces conducted a kinetic strike against positively identified Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists in the Southcom area of responsibility. Tren de Aragua is a designated foreign terrorist organization operating under the control of Nicolas Maduro, responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and acts of violence and terror across the United States and Western Hemisphere." Maduro, as you'll remember, is the dictator of socialist Venezuela. The president continued, "The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters, transporting illegal narcotics heading to the United States. The strike resulted in 11 terrorists killed in action. No U.S. forces were harmed in the strike. Please let this serve as a notice to anybody ever thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware. Thank you for your attention to this matter." In an interview with Fox News yesterday afternoon, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Acting National Security Advisor went into a bit of detail about the United States policy against cartels in the Caribbean and the greater Western Hemisphere.
The president is going to be on offense against drug cartels and drug trafficking in the United States. It destabilizes not just the country, but the entire Caribbean basin. These particular drugs were probably headed to Trinidad or some other country in the Caribbean, at which point they just contribute to the instability these countries are facing. So the president's been very clear that he's going to use the full power of America and the full might of the United States to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. Those days are over.
Before you go, head down to the description and make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kinnett Cast. And join us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern for a roundup of the day's news and nonsense as we creep closer to episode 400. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.